I never imagined my son would remind me of the heartbreaking bond with a homeless boy. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was as if the world had decided to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable crash. The air felt thick, electric, yet strangely silent. I glanced at him, my young boy, a flower in a storm, blissfully unaware of the shadows creeping closer. We were in the park, his laughter mingling with the distant sound of a saxophone playing. That day, the sun seemed to dance, casting long, twisted shadows on the ground. I remember feeling a strange chill, a whisper promising something ominous, a hint that my life was about to unravel. As I observed him, so innocent, I couldn't help but think of the boy. The one I encountered many years ago. His name was Sam. We met when my life felt like a weight too heavy to carry. Sam was different, had this uncanny ability to strip away the layers of despair with just a smile. His clothes were tattered, his hair unruly, but his eyes sparkled like stars against the darkness of the alley he often called home. The memory surfaced like a ghost. I could still hear the echo of his laughter bouncing off the concrete, how he shared his stories about lost toys and forgotten dreams. There was this invisible bond, forged in shared misfortune. But that bond he had tucked it away, too afraid to face it. Until now, suddenly, my son stumbled, his foot catching on a stray root. My heart raced. I dashed to him, hands trembling. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, brushing dirt off his shorts. But it was then I saw a fleeting look in his eyes, a flicker resembling Sam's. It struck me hard, the same abandoned hope. What was happening? The saxophonist played on, while the world blurred around us. I could feel the weight of my past clawing at my throat. Was it possible that the bond Sam and I had shared was woven into my son's spirit? My chest tightened, and a lump formed in my throat. I was overwhelmed with the urgency to know. To understand. Every moment in my life flooded back, choices made, chances missed, and that desperate feeling of love lost. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching, whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. I clutched my son's hand tightly, my pulse racing. The air was charged, thick with unanswered questions. I wanted to scream, to confront the ghosts of my past. I wanted to scream at myself for ignoring the connection we all have, the invisible threads between us and those we lose. But I was silent. Silent, paralyzed by my thoughts. I glanced back at the park bench where I once sat with Sam, years ago, just like this, laughter in the air, innocence unbroken. What if there was something more? Something waiting to be uncovered, a truth that could shatter everything I thought I knew? I looked at my son again, and in those moments, hope danced, and with it, fear. Was he destined to carry the weight of my past on his small shoulders? The thought sank deep, dark and heavy, as a sudden chill rushed down my spine, and just like that, a strange figure appeared in the distance, a silhouette emerging slowly. The air changed, became electric with tension. Was it Sam? Was it someone else? I felt a gasp escape my lips. My heart raced in anticipation, my breath caught in my throat. What could this mean for us? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure advanced, steps slow but deliberate, a shadow trying to outrun the encroaching dusk. With each step, the air thickened with anticipation. I felt an unsettling mix of hope and dread stream through my veins, battling for dominance. Clutching my son's hand, I drew him slightly closer, as if shielding him from an unseen threat, or perhaps from the old memories washing over me like a relentless tide. "Mom, who's that?" he asked, his innocent voice shattering the fragile silence surrounding us. His eyes, wide and curious, searched mine for answers I wasn't ready to give. I don't know, I muttered, my throat dry. I narrowed my focus on the approaching figure, feeling a bittersweet ache creeping inside me. As they drew closer, I saw familiar, worn features, the lines on their face etched by countless seasons of hardship. My breath hitched, a desperate prayer welled up within me. And then I saw with unmistakable wild hair, the tired but exuberant eyes. It was Sam. My heart leapt, crashing against my ribcage, a blend of shock and joy filling the hollow spaces within me. Time had not been kind to him, but in many ways, he was the same boy whose laughter used to dance with the wind. Sam? I whispered, as if speaking his name aloud would summon the required reality I desperately sought. In an instant, thoughts spiraled. Was he here by chance, or was there a greater purpose behind this reunion? My mind raced through the labyrinth of emotions, reconciling the once invisible bond we shared with the new reality before me. He paused a few feet away, an inscrutable expression on his face. "Long time no see," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. The years peeled back as we exchanged glances. I could feel the warmth of nostalgia blending with an undercurrent of trepidation. What did he know about my journey, my life since the last time we met? "Sam!" my son exclaimed, breaking the taut moment. Are you a hero?" His innocent exuberance cut through the tension that lurked like a shadow, pierce after pierce, until I felt a sliver of normalcy return to my world. At that moment, Sam's eyes softened, seemed to recognize the bond forged between us all those years ago, and something flickered in his gaze, an echo of affection. "Not a hero, kid," he replied, dropping to one knee to meet my son's eye level. "Just someone who's traveled a long way through this world." In that brief exchange, I marveled at how one moment could encapsulate so much emotion, a blend of love, hardship, and resilience belonging to both my son and Sam. Sam's presence ignited a rare sense of hope within me, urging me to confront the unresolved feelings I had buried for so long. What did I owe to him today? The laughter from nearby children and the soft melodies of the saxophone faded into the backdrop as I watched Sam pull out a crumpled piece of paper from his jacket. It seemed odd, almost pivotal, yet oddly profound. My heart raced with curiosity and fear. "I've been keeping something for you," he said, opening it for me. The paper bore old, faded drawings, images of us, entering a world of imagination. Simple sketches turned intricate tales, each stroke a memory that had never left him nor me. In that moment, the burden of my past felt less daunting, lighter somehow, as though he had unwittingly repaired the fractures within my soul. But just as the air felt thick with promise, I caught a fleeting glimpse over Sam's shoulder. A dark figure lingered in the distance, watching, waiting. My heart sank, and doubt invaded the newfound warmth instigated by Sam's presence. Who was that? Why did it feel like the past was trying to encircle me again? Before I could voice my concerns, my son tugged on my sleeve urgently. "Mom! Can we go over to him? Can we be friends?" His voice was bright, innocent, like a ray of sunlight piercing through dark clouds. His honesty, anchoring my heart yet making it heavier. The possibility of connection and loss mingled dangerously close as my instincts warned me of the unknown. Just wait a moment, I managed, looking from Sam to my son and back again. The tempest inside me swirled, threatening to overwhelm me. I had spent years disentangling my heart from loss, cultivating a fragile peace. But now, I stood on the precipice between the past and the present, desperate for the clarity I sought. The shadows lengthened, and the air thickened again. Would this moment be one of reunion and healing, or would it unravel everything I was trying to protect? And there it was, the figure in the distance took a step forward, revealing a familiar face I hadn't seen in years, unearthing secrets I had buried deep. It was a face I never thought I would see again. "Mom," my son's voice broke through the tumult, a reminder that love and hope still pulsed in ways I couldn't yet understand. My heart raced, each beat echoing the questions spiraling through my mind. Was I prepared for the answers that awaited me? A gust of wind whispered through the air, and I felt it carry the weight of unseen memories, heavy yet impossibly delicate. My breath caught as the face emerged fully from the shadows, and the world around me diluted into an ambient hum. There they stood. It was Chloe, my little sister, long lost to time and choices we never had the chance to negotiate. Her presence ignited a cascade of emotions that threatened to drown me. Chloe? My voice cracked, remnants of a lilt that had once defined our shared laughter threatening to break free now, tangled with disbelief. The years seemed to peel back between us like brittle, yellowing pages of an old book. How could she be here, in a place riddled with remnants of tragedy where we had left so much unresolved? Hey, sis, she responded slowly, her voice laced with a familiarity that sent chills down my spine. She glanced at my son, a fleeting flicker of recognition mingled with something deeper, something raw. A blend of hope and remorse sharpened the air around us. Is that your son? Chloe asked, as if she were afraid to touch the tangible truth of his existence, letting it dance at the edges of her words. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, glossed over by the weight of being lost for so long. Yeah, I managed, each word slicing through the air like a revelation I could barely grasp. This is him. This is Noah. I squeezed my son's hand tighter, anchoring myself as the specter of my past loomed larger with every fleeting moment. Mom? Noah chirped, his curious gaze bouncing between us. Is she my aunt? Yes, she is, I replied, the simple truth torching a path through my tangled emotions. My heart swelled with an unbearable longing for reconciliation, for clarity, for a destiny we had once embarked on together, but as Chloe's gaze fell on Noah, an unexpected sadness veiled her features. He looks just like you. Her words faltered, emotions threatening to submerge her, and I felt the pulse of shared pain and the myriad of choices we had made echo between us. In that moment, we stood on the precipice, a silent acknowledgement of the fragile lines that time had drawn between us. The hurt that lay buried beneath years of silence nagged at my insides, an unrelenting force. Had she come to confront me about the past, to understand the scars we had borne, or to ask where I had vanished into obscurity? Noah loves to draw, I said, desperately trying to tether the conversation to safer ground, hoping for a moment of levity. He's been practicing before I could finish, a haunting voice cut through the unsteady bridge of our reunion. You really think that matters now, after everything? The figure from the distance, the one I had tried to ignore, the one that loomed behind Chloe like a specter, spoke, each word razor-edged and cutting. My pulse quickened as I turned to see the familiar contours of a broken man, his face lined with desperation that scraped my insides raw. It was Lucas, Chloe's old partner, the one who had fallen victim to the abyss of addiction. The expression on his face twisted somewhere between longing and animosity as he struggled through the entangled emotional web we all shared. What are you doing here, Lucas? Chloe asked, her face faltering as the weight of his presence hung thick in the air. Just wanted to see how everyone's doing, he replied, the irony lacing his voice, heavy with distrust. Glad to see life turned out so well for you, Chloe. Seems you've finally found what it means to be a sister. Enough. I shouted, grappling my fear and disbelief as I clutched Noah tighter, feeling both vulnerable and fiercely protective. This isn't about you anymore. My heart raced not only for my son but for the ghostly past clawing back to reclaim whatever pieces it could. Lucas stepped closer, the shadows stretching ominously between us. You think it isn't about me? You left without a word. Everyone abandoned everything. I had to pick up the pieces. You have no idea what I've had to endure since then, what I lost, he rasped, his gaze piercing through the fragile wall I had built around my family. Tremors coursed through me, and I struggled to reconvene the shards of courage hidden deep within. Here I was, face to face with my past, the very same past I had thought I could outrun. My mind raced with unsettling questions. What if the darkness Lucas spoke of was not just his? What if it reached further into our lives than I ever wanted to acknowledge, Mom? Noah's voice broke again, innocent and grounding, but now there was an undercurrent of fear threading through his words. Why does it feel scary? Why does he seem angry? His vulnerability shattered my already fraying heart. It's okay, Noah, I whispered, forcing a calm I didn't feel. I turned back to face the estranged pieces of my life, desperately attempting to shield my son from the chaos swirling around us, but Chloe had stepped closer to Lucas, her expression now a tempest of defiance. We can't keep pretending everything is fine. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about the choices we made and how they've defined our lives. You chose to drown in your pain, Lucas. You have to own that. Just then, a violent gust of wind swept across us, tossing the brittle remnants of fallen leaves in all directions, symbolizing uncertainties that tangled in the lines of our past. Our collective silence bore the weight of unsaid words, lingering questions waiting for the moment to erupt. In that very moment, a realization surged through me. The love I had cultivated was not the complete shield I thought it was. It held cracks, vulnerabilities, and questions that could not go unaddressed anymore. And now, as pain threatened to collapse beneath its reckoning, I saw an unsettling truth loom ahead. The darkness that had once enveloped Lucas, the choices that had brought him here, directly traced the outlines of my own decisions, haunting our every movement. For the first time, letting go felt like a possibility I had never considered before. Would facing our ghosts mean salvation or fracture the fragile bond one had built around my son? But as the wind stilled and the clouds thickened, the echo of dread loomed larger. My heart raced anew as a cold reality seeped in. What were each of us willing to sacrifice to heal the fractures forged by silence and choices made long ago? And in the heaviness of that moment, standing between a shattered past and an uncertain future, I could only wonder, where would this journey lead me next? The silence that enveloped us felt as oppressive as the storm clouds brewing above. I could sense Noah's confusion deepening, his innocent mind wrestling with the despair echoing in our words. The air crackled with unsettled emotions, flickering between what was said and what still hung heavily between us, unspoken. Mom. Noah tugged at my hand, his voice a thread woven into the fabric of our shared trepidation. Each time he called me, it sent shards of piercing intensity through my chest. Can we go home? I don't like it here. I knelt before him, my heart aching at the fear reflected in his wide eyes. We will, sweetheart. Just a little longer, I promised, but I was unsure if I was reassuring him or myself. Behind me, the shadows of our past shifted and swirled, bearing down on the fragile moment. You think this is all just going to blow over? That we can walk away without confronting the storm inside? Lucas' voice cut through, a bitter lilt of desperation underscoring every word. Enough. I cried again, grabbing Noah's shoulders gently. Stop. We can't keep doing this. Not here, not now. This isn't what he needs. My voice trembled, straddling the precipice of restraint and the raw edge of grief. Chloe's eyes flickered with something like sympathy. It was a small glimmer that weighed heavily in the air as Lucas recoiled, his anger cresting but wavering against the tide of our sorrow. If we're going to heal, we have to start somewhere, Chloe insisted, her words laced with a newfound determination. And that starts with us together. The wind howled in response, whispering faint memories through the skeletal branches above. I should have felt fortified by her strength, but I only felt a rising tide of anxiety. The walls I had spent years building around my family felt thinner by the moment. I glanced at Noah, whose sweet innocence was an anchor tethering me to the present, reminding me of the life I was trying to protect. Mom? He asked again, his curious gaze now searching for answers in the chaos. What do you mean by healing? Is it like when you cut yourself and the ouch goes away? I inhaled sharply, deeply aware of the fragility radiating from his little frame. How do I explain the intangible hurt brewing between adults, a hurt entirely muddled with regrets and choices? Yes, in a way, Noah. Sometimes it hurts, and the blood reminds us it's there. But sometimes you need help to make it better. The words barely came out before my own truth seized me with panic. How could I help him find healing while I felt so deeply wounded myself? Chloe stepped forward, her expression a complex tapestry of longing and resolve. That's why we have to address the wounds, Noah. They might be deep, but we can bandage them together if we're willing to face what's hurting us." Lucas crossed his arms, unease wrinkling his brow, yet he seemed to be absorbing the words bouncing around us. "You think just confronting the past is going to save us?" He scoffed, though the rawness in his tone betrayed a flicker of vulnerability. "What if it only pulls us further apart? What ifs don't matter anymore, Lucas?" I interrupted, exasperation bubbling to the surface. "We've let them dictate too much of our lives already." The silence that followed was laden with tension and fractured hope. I felt trapped between my past, this tight knot of painful memories, and the present, where Noah's innocence demanded clarity free from our haunting shadows. Then, as if timed perfectly, the gust of wind returned, rustling the leaves with a voice of its own. I turned my gaze upwards, and for a breath, I felt the vastness of the sky mingle with the frantic thumping of my heart. It beckoned me, a bittersweet call to step into the light, to face everything I had been running from. Yet now, as I looked into Noah's wide eyes, it wasn't just my struggle anymore. "Let's take one step at a time, together," I urged, looking from Noah to Chloe, then to Lucas. Perhaps there could be a thread connecting all of USA, shared understanding waiting to be spun from the same tangled past. "That I am not sure I can do that," Lucas finally whispered, and it was the sharp vulnerability in his voice that struck me deeply. "But you have to try," Chloe replied fiercely. "For us, for the future. It's not too late, Lucas." The atmosphere shifted, a stillness wrapping us in its fragile embrace. I felt Noah's hand squeeze mine, warmth radiating between us, a quiet acknowledgement of the bonds we shared despite the uncertainty brewing in the AIR.AS. We stood there, at the crossroads of our separate pasts, the weight of unspoken words echoed louder than the wind. The cracks in our lives were no longer distant, they were portraits of loss and regret, raw and aching. But it was then, pushed by a mixture of desperation and hope, that Lucas stepped forward, the resolve in his posture wavering. "What if facing it means tearing apart everything we thought we knew?" My heart pounded wildly as I realized this was the moment we all feared, the turning point that could reshape our destinies. "Then we will rebuild together," I said, the strength of my own voice surprising me, but just as the storm poised to unleash its fury, Noah turned sharply, eyes wide with understanding and innocence. "Can I tell you all something?" His voice wobbled, drawing immediate attention. "Of course," I urged, and everyone fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. "I saw a boy at the park yesterday," he said slowly, the seriousness in his tone pulling me deeper into the quiet of his thoughts. "He looked like he was really scared and sad. I wanted to ask him to color with me. Can we do that? Can we help him too?" My breath hitched in my throat, the weight of his words crashing over me, and in that moment, a new layer of hope mingled with the turbulence of our journey. How did he so beautifully encapsulate what I feared but yearned for? As we stared at one another, the walls that had separated us began to tremble, and I knew then that we were on the brink of something tremendous, a convergence of destinies that could yet unravel the knots of our past. And just like that, I grasped what we stood to gain or lose. Yet, standing on this precipice of vulnerability, the storm above seemed to echo a chilling question. Were we truly ready to confront not just our demons but the untold stories weaving between us? Both the heartbreaking and the beautiful, what awaited us on the other side remained uncertain, but as the moments ticked by, I could feel the tide shifting. And with it came the realization that our journey was only just beginning. The weight of Noah's words hung in the air, a fragile thread connecting our hurt with a glimmer of hope. I searched his eyes, desperately trying to anchor myself in the innocence reflected within them. "You want to help him?" I asked softly, my heart swelling with a mix of pride and anxiety. He nodded vigorously, his curly hair bouncing along with his enthusiasm. "Yes." He looked like he needed friends. A part of me wanted to shield him from the harsh realities of the world, to protect him from the shadows that lingered just beyond our fragile bubble of family unity. But as I looked at Lucas and Chloe, I questioned whether shielding was truly the answer. Maybe, just maybe, Noah's innocent desire for connection could pave the path for our healing. Chloe knelt beside Noah, her eyes shimmering with appreciation. "That's such a brave thing to want, Noah. Helping someone is one of the best ways to heal. Sometimes it helps us heal, too." Lucas shifted his weight, a ghost of a smile flickering on his lips at Chloe's praise. But deep down, I could sense his guardedness. "It's not that simple, Noah," he said gently, tension still taut in his voice. "There are so many reasons why someone might be different. We can't just assume we can fix everything." "Yeah," Noah replied, his innocence beginning to falter against the weight of adult complexities. "But what if we just tried?" His words caught us all off guard. It wrapped around the rawness of our shared pain, enveloping our hearts like a small glow of courage in the overwhelming darkness. There was no denying it, Noah held the thread that could untangle our worries, but I worried he was also unwittingly pulling us closer to deeper uncertainties. "That I think we should do something," I said, my voice quavering as I looked at my family. "Maybe we can find that boy. It could help us as a family to learn how to understand more about each other, and the fears we face." Lucas' gaze faltered, but beneath the uncertainty, I sensed a flicker of hope igniting. "You really think it could help us?" He seemed to be weighing the possibility against the heavy chains of our past. Chloe nodded emphatically, her optimism radiating clearly for the first time. "We need to come together if we're going to face whatever's waiting beyond this moment," she urged, as if trying to light a spark in Lucas' heart, but deep inside, another fear clawed at me. If opening that door led us to only more pain? What if, instead of healing, we unearthed secrets that shattered the fragile pieces I had desperately tried to keep intact for Noah? Before I could voice my hesitation, Noah bounced on his toes, his excitement spilling over. Can we go now?" he asked, the urgency tinged with unwavering determination. The blend of conviction in his voice and Chloe's gentle encouragement created an undeniable rhythm of hope, but the reality of our circumstances crept in with every passing moment. "All right," I finally breathed, "but we need to discuss how we can approach this carefully." As we turned to leave the park, I felt a lightness in the air, as though a tiny seed of unity had taken root within us. Hope was fragile, easily visible yet equally so easily swept away by the winds of doubt. Every step we took felt monumental, as if we were carving our way through the storm that had engulfed our lives for too long, but the clouds above threatened to break their containment, and the first drops of rain began to fall, casting a shivering chill in the air. "Maybe we should postpone," Lucas suggested, glancing warily at the horizon. "No," I said swiftly, a surge of stubbornness surprising even me. "We don't turn back now, not when we're on the verge of making a change." And so we pressed on, the rhythm of Noah's eagerness guiding us like a beacon even as doubt churned in my stomach. As we walked through the streets, soaked by the rain and windswept, something shifted in the atmosphere, a slow dawning of connection pulling me closer to my family. Then, just as we turned a corner, the photo of a boy worn by cold and life's cruelties caught my eye, plastered across the window of a nearby cafe. My heart sank deeper still when I recognized the open anguish in his eyes. The familiarity struck me like a bolt of lightning as I realized the boy in the picture bore an uncanny resemblance to Noah. "Look at him," I murmured, pointing toward the glass. Noah stepped closer, squinting at the sad image. "Who is he, Mom?" Before I could respond, a flicker of recognition ignited in Lucas's gaze. "Mom, that's him, isn't it? The boy you said we should help?" My heart raced as I felt the world narrowing around us, the realization that this was more than just a random face. The connection was visceral, a chilling intertwining of fate, drawing us into uncharted waters filled with uncertainties and shadow-laden truths. "Maybe this is where we start," Chloe whispered, her voice wavering under the weight of shared understanding. Little did we know, as we approached, drawn into the boy's stark reality, that this journey would challenge everything we thought we knew. The storm clouds above burgeoned, and with them came a shocking revelation, one that could unravel the fragile threads of our hope. The cafe doors swung open with an inviting jingle, but inside, warmth battled against the cold reality of the moment. The hum of conversation mixed with the scent of coffee and something sweeter, a touch of hope, perhaps, yet it hung by a thread. The photo in the window stirred a restlessness in me, like the storm-pricked air before a tempest. "There he is," I said softly as we stepped inside, my voice swallowed by the ambient noise. The boy, his face planted firmly in the frame of loneliness, looked so much like Noah. It was more than just a resemblance, it was a reflection of what could be lost, what vulnerability lay just beneath our own surface. Noah tugged at my sleeve, his eyes, wide with innocence, searched for the boy now that we were so close. "Can we talk to him?" I glanced at Lucas and Chloe, fearing their respective reactions. Lucas' brow was furrowed, tension spilling over like the rain outside, while Chloe's eyes shimmered with compassion, urging me to take a risk. "Let's just see what he's doing," I suggested, though inside, my heart raced at the prospect of confronting deeper fears. We stepped further inside, the warmth wrapping around us but failing to eliminate the chill clawing at my insides. The boy was sitting alone at a back table, a small cup steaming between his hands. He looked to be around Noah's age, though something in his demeanor spoke of untold stories and profound anguish. The frayed edges of his clothing whispered to me the burdens he carried, burdens my children knew nothing about. "Excuse me," I said, trying to steady my voice as we approached. He glanced up, and in the depths of his gaze, I saw shades of despair and something else, a flicker of hope. "Do you mind if we sit with you?" he shrugged, eyes darting from Noah, who stood at my side, to some invisible point beyond the cafe walls, uncertain and guarded. "Whatever," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Noah wasted no time, bouncing into the seat beside him. Noah. "I'm here with my mom and my sister." "What's your name?" "Sam," he muttered, his tone devoid of enthusiasm, as if it had dissipated alongside his sense of belonging. "Well, Sam, we saw your picture in the window," I began cautiously, "and my son wanted to reach out, to see if you would like to hang out with us. Maybe get some hot chocolate?" Sam's eyes flickered, a shadow of skepticism etched across his features. "You don't even know me." Noah didn't seem deterred. "I know it's hard to talk to new people, but we want to be friends with you." "Right, Mom?" My heart swelled at his courage, but trepidation twisted in my gut. What if this kindness was met with more rejection than warmth? "Yes," I confirmed, my voice firmer now. "We want to understand more, to be friends." Sam observed us for a few moments, the battle of emotions playing across his face, curiosity, apprehension, hope, and a yearning that he probably didn't want to acknowledge. Eventually, an unexpected softness settled over him. "I dunno how to be friends," he said cautiously, a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes warning me that we were treading on precarious ground. Noah leaned closer, excited defiance lighting up his face. "We can figure that out together. Friends are supposed to help each other." "Yeah," Sam replied, a half-smile betraying the chains that bound him. Maybe. As we began to chat, it became apparent that the casual conversations around us only dimmed in comparison to the weighty stories woven into Sam's words. With each shared detail about his life, the night spent wandering, the fear that came with being without shelter, an invisible thread tightened around my heart, binding me ever closer to the plight of this boy who mirrored my son. Each revelation felt like an unraveling string, gentle yet insistent, drawing out emotions that were not just mine, but for my family entwined within my thoughts. Chloe, wise beyond her years, reached across the table. "Sam," she said with genuine sincerity, "we want to help. We're here for you." I watched as light flickered behind Sam's eyes, hope rising from ashes long buried. He hesitated before speaking, a mix of pain and longing shadowing him. "Why would you want to help me?" "Because everyone deserves friends and help," Noah declared, his faith spilling into the space with veracity. "Just like you proved that you could miss someone." For a moment, the world outside faded into nothingness. The sincerity of Noah's words shattered the walls around Sam's heart. Yet, just as the sunlight dared to peek through puffy clouds, a deafening clamor erupted from the cafe door. A figure stepped in, a tall, harsh silhouette that loomed in stark contrast to the warmth of our burgeoning connection. My heart sank as I recognized the fierce expression, the burdened shoulders of a woman I knew too well, a woman filled with shadows that echoed painful memories of my past. Suddenly, the fragile thread of hope began to fray, the warm undercurrent of connection dragged down under the weight of the storm brewing outside. "Sam. Get over here," she shouted, her voice a whip cracking through the air. Chaos broke loose within my chest as everything shifted in an instant. Sam's phantasmic hope flickered once more, but it wasn't in his eyes alone, it was now visible in the very atmosphere around us. This unexpected revelation threatened to unravel everything we had just begun to weave, our collective healing, our tentative bonds, igniting panic within me. I turned to Lucas and Chloe, my insides twisting impossibly tighter. Would Sam's past pull him back into shadows we couldn't reach? Would the light we had but tasted turn to darkness before we could illuminate the path ahead? Sam's gaze locked onto mine, desperation mingled with defiance sparking within him, leaving me breathless as I recognized the fight surging in his young heart. We stood at the precipice, one family extending a hand to another in need, yet fate threatened to pull everything apart in an unrelenting and jarring tug. The air within the cafe crackled with tension as the woman's call rang like a bell tolling, echoing through the corners of my heart. She stood frozen in the doorway, a tempest contained within a frame of hardened anguish. Sam's momentary flicker of hope went dark, shadowed by the figure that had stepped into his world. "What do you want?" Sam's voice was now a tight wire, trembling with emotion as he clenched his fists on the table, the delicate steam rising between us seeming to congeal with a unifying urgency. "Get over here, now." Her command reverberated off the cafe's walls, drawing stares from patrons who had once been oblivious to our gathering. Fingers fumbled for coffee cups, and conversations hushed to whispers, entranced by the scene unfolding like a train wreck. Lucas' intense gaze flitted between Sam and this woman, concern etched on his face. Chloe's small hand tightened around mine, as though she sensed the depth of the emotional struggle in the air. I wanted dearly to shield Sam from this sudden chaos, to cocoon the fragile bond had begun to forge with my children. "Sam," I said softly, an attempt to ground him, to keep him anchored amidst turbulence, "you don't have to go if you don't want to. You can stay with us." The moment stretched, the weight of each word a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. No. "You don't understand." Sam shot back, his voice strained but emboldened. He looked directly at the woman as if gauging her wrath, and fear coiled in the space around him like a living shadow. "You don't know what she can do, that's not our concern right now," I pressed gently, leaning in, wanting him to hear the sincerity taught in my tone. "Your safety is." For an instant, the air in the cafe thickened, as though it had become an entity unto itself, wrapping around us in an embrace that felt more suffocating than nurturing. The woman's presence radiated a harshness, an intensity that demanded respect but stoked fear. I wanted desperately to provide sanctuary, yet the rift carved by their shared past pulsed between us, a reminder that kindness could be a double-edged sword. "Sam." She barked again, impatience lacing her voice. "Stop being so ridiculous and come here." With every syllable, the chaos of his reality seeped back, almost tangible in its form as he struggled beneath it. A battle raged within him, clawing at his heart as he looked between his past and the possibility of a future. Maybe I'm just being stupid," he whispered, his voice quaking with uncertainty. "Maybe I don't deserve this." Panic surged in my chest. "You do deserve this," I urged, desperation infusing my words like a last-ditch plea. "Please don't let her take this away from you." The torment on his face echoed the struggles we had faced with our own pasts, illuminating the struggle we all shared, fighting against ourselves, against those who once held tight to our hearts only to drag us back into shadows. Chloe, sensing the urgency, joined in. "You are brave, Sam. You've shown us that already. Getting to know us doesn't mean you're betraying where you come from." Noah remained steadfast in his seat beside Sam, determination washing over him as he whispered, "You can be our friend too. We want you to be part of our family." Sam turned to Noah, a slight tremor of hope flickering again beneath the layers of fear. But just as quickly, it dimmed, replaced by a raw resignation. "But what if she takes me away from you? What if I'm never allowed to be happy?" Before I could respond, the woman stepped further into our realm, her posture rigid and menacing. "Sam. This is not a joke. You're coming with me, now." The cafe was a different world with her in it, the warmth we'd begun building flickering with uncertainty. Sam seemed on the verge of a break, voices battling inside his head like frightened echoes, years of pain grappling against a moment of unexpected kindness. A sudden surge of determination coursed through me. "Stop," I commanded, feeling the raw edge of authority in my voice. "You can't just drag him away from here. He's made a connection. That means something." Her eyes hardened on me as if my words were arrows piercing through her indifference, yet I stood rooted, unwilling to let fear dictate the course of this moment. In that silence, however, a shift rippled across Sam's face, a moment of struggle distilled into an exhale, one that conveyed a fragile thread of courage that seemed almost ethereal. I want to stay," he murmured, as if it were the most daunting thing he could confess. "Please don't make me go." The woman's fury flickered, but we all sensed it simmering just beneath the surface, ready to explode. Her brow furrowed, and for a second, it seemed as though she might relent, but the storm brewing behind her eyes warned otherwise. "Sam, you can fight this," I urged, inhaling the damp scent of coffee and fear-touched hope that hung in the air. "You have a choice." With every heartbeat, I felt a sudden realization the battle was not only his to endure but also mine to face alongside him. I had to believe that compassion could be reborn, even when it felt most elusive, a pulse beating beneath layers of grief. In that moment of exquisite connection, I glimpsed a path forward, even if it was hushed and frail. Yet as the tension rose to a breaking point, a ringing echoed through the café, a rich sound juxtaposed against the suffocating silence, serving to unravel the tension. It was Sam's phone, buzzed repeatedly atop the table, a forced reality breaking into our tentative cocoon. The moment passed, and every eye turned to see who would disrupt this fragile moment further. Sam's gaze flickered to the screen, terror flickering across his face. "What if it's her again?" he whispered, the color draining from his cheeks. In that instant, uncertainty gripped my chest, but a dark line of dread seemed to weave itself through the cracks, a chilling sense that everything was about to spiral out of control. As Sam reached for the phone, a sense of urgency clawed at me, a truth long hidden seemed ready to burst through. What awaited us behind that screen was yet to be revealed, but I sensed that whatever lay there would send ripples through the newfound bond we had forged amidst the chaos of our lives. "Sam," I pled, "please don't answer if it's her." But the boy's hand trembled as he pressed the screen, and with that fateful decision, the atmosphere shifted once more, the storm within him brewing to a tempest of uncertainty that would alter the course of all our lives in ways we could hardly imagine. The café, once a cradle of warmth and tentative bonds, now felt like a battleground. Tension crackled in the air, electrified with fear and uncertainty as I watched Sam stare at his phone, the screen lighting up his face in a spectral glow. The others could feel it too. Chloe's fingers trembled where she held mine, and Noah's small face was drawn tight with worry, his innocence suddenly weighted by the reality of this moment. "Sam," I repeated, my voice imbued with a quiet urgency, "you don't have to answer it." His fingers hovered above the screen, trembling like a leaf on the verge of falling. I could see the war within him, the undulating tides of fear clashing against the flickering flame of hope he'd recently found with us. A part of me wanted to snatch the phone away and end this tension once and for all, but a deeper part knew this was Sam's battle to fight. "Maybe it's just not her," he whispered, guilt lacing his words, and for an instant, I saw the burden of his past crash over him like a dark wave, more suffocating than anything I could say. "That doesn't mean you have to face it alone," Lucas interjected, his voice slicing through the heavy atmosphere like a sharp knife. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to." Sam's lips quivered, and his gaze darted away from the screen, seeking comfort in our small group. I was struck by the starkness of his vulnerability under that guise of defiance, and again I felt that protective instinct swelling inside me. "I am scared," he admitted, the rawness of his confession striking a chord within me. "What if it's about my mom? What if she's come to? What if you stayed here?" Chloe interjected softly, her eyes wide and earnest, unburdened by the shadows of experience that clouded the rest of us. "You don't have to let her into your life again. We want you here with us, Sam." Her words hung in the air, a lifeline that seemed to pierce through Sam's hesitations. For a moment, it felt as if time slowed down. The café became a universe, and in that universe, Sam's courage fused with the hope offered by the siblings around him. But before he could respond, the phone rang again, the chime echoing through the silence like a sinister bell. Sam flinched, instinctively jerking away, the embers of his resolve smothered by anxiety. Just then, the woman stepped closer, her presence reeking of authority and danger. She seemed quite aware of the battle raging in Sam's heart, and relish danced in her eyes. "Don't you dare let them tell you what to do." Her voice was a whip crack, splintering the ethereal moment. The undertow of tension escalated again, swirling menacingly around us. Sam's inner turmoil resurfaced, was caught between the riptide of his past and the outstretched hands of those who cared for him now. My heart ached for him as he shifted his weight, clearly teetering on the edge of an impossible decision. "Sam, please," I said, narrowing my gaze to channel every ounce of warmth I could muster. "You don't have to go back to something that doesn't want you. You're building something beautiful here. Let it be." This time, he looked back at me with wide, tear-glimmering eyes, searching for affirmation. His breath hitched, and I felt the weight of his internal struggle settle heavily in my chest. In that fleeting moment, there was a clarity. I saw the essence of the boy he could be if he chose connection over ghosts of the past. Yet, just as Sam's finger hovered over the screen, the call went to voicemail. That simple mechanical sound sent a shockwave through the cafe, punctuating the fragile silence with a sudden, sharp finality. His shoulders slumped in relief, but only for a fleeting moment, as bewilderment clouded his visage. What if she calls again? What if she keeps coming after me? "She won't if you don't let her," Noah encouraged, earnest and tenacious. "You have a new family now. You've got us." That I in the midst of that struggle, however, something else loomed on, unease that now gnawed at my gut, churning with quiet desperation. I turned slightly. The woman had receded into a looming presence rather than a mere adversary. Her glinting eyes, locked onto mine, filled with an unsettling mixture of disdain and determination. "Do you think you can keep him from me?" she hissed under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear. Her fierceness pierced those moments of hope like a shadow crossing a sun. "You don't know who you're dealing with." The barista cautiously approached us, likely sensing the gravity of the scene, and asked if we needed any refills. Her hesitant smile broke through the haze but only served as a reminder that hope remained elusive, swirling just beyond reach. "No," I replied, shaking my head even as the faintest glimmer of gratitude broke through the darkness. "We're all right. Just take a step back." But as soon as the barista retreated, I couldn't shake off the premonition that a storm was gathering, one that would rage with an intensity one could only begin to fathom. As we all stood there in that cafe, bound by invisible strings of loyalty and fear, Sam's attention shifted back toward the phone, now vibrating on the table's edge, alerting us once more to the impending reality lurking beneath the surface. "Are you ready for this?" I asked, grounding my voice in a calm assurance, even as a new wave of trepidation washed over me. "Can it get worse?" he countered, sharing a frail smile that didn't quite shelter his anxiety. My heart sank, a chilling reality settling in. The most cutting truth was yet to be revealed. "Yeah, it can," I confessed, a wistful weight now anchoring our fragile moment. "But what lies ahead can also be beautiful." I held my breath as Sam picked up the phone again, and as he did, I couldn't shake the feeling that this tiny screen might unravel everything we had fought to build, sweeping us into uncharted waters once more. Whether hope or despair awaited on the other side was anyone's guess, and as he hesitated, dread twisted in my chest. What if it unleashed a chaos from which we could never recover? The cafe's comforting hum had evaporated, leaving only that weighty silence that filled the air with expectant dread. I could feel every freckle on my skin prickling, every heartbeat echoing a warning. As Sam's thumb hesitated over the screen, I caught Chloe's eyes, a flicker of fear reflected in her wide gaze. Noah squeezed her hand tighter, both anchoring and reaching out in that moment. "Just breathe, Sam," I whispered, my own voice uneven, struggling against the tide of uncertainty. My heart raced as if to keep pace with the spiraling thoughts in my mind. The woman still loomed nearby, a dark cloud blotting out the sun that had only just started to break through the tangled shadows of Sam's world. He inhaled deeply, eyes closing momentarily, and I could see a flicker of something beyond fear, a glimmer of determination. "Maybe," he finally murmured, "maybe I don't need to hear what she has to say. Maybe I just need to let it go." The words stirred something powerful within our small troop, a promise we had all been subconsciously waiting to hear. And yet, the moment was fragile, a soap bubble glistening in the sunlight, ready to burst. Just as I felt a comforting thread of hope knitting itself around our hearts, Sam lowered his gaze to the face of the phone again, an edge of hesitation still shadowing his expression. He began, but the interruption came in the form of a flash on the screen. New voicemail, a notification dancing ominously, daring him to listen. Just don't, I urged, desperation pushing my words out like a plea. Please, don't let her back in. The flicker of understanding between us was palpable, but the tug of the unknown weighed heavy in the atmosphere. Chloe's other hand found its way to his, the warmth grounding him, and I could see the gears turning in Sam's vulnerable heart. What if I want to hear it? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper, revealing a truth so raw that it knocked the air out of my lungs. Why would you? Lucas countered in frustration, his unwavering loyalty evident as he stepped closer, casting an assertive figure. You don't owe her anything, Sam. She hurt you. She left you. No. Sam's voice broke slightly, the tide of emotions unpleasantly palpable. But she's still my mom, and even if she didn't want me, I can't stop wondering if maybe she's changed. I asked gently, trying to infuse a delicate ounce of hope into his turmoil, yet also wary of the abyss I sensed waiting to swallow him whole. Exactly. The way he spoke made my heart leap, yet a part of me recoiled as his despair painted darker hues over the vibrant colors of our bond. I wish, he continued, a tear escaping down his cheek, I wish she'd be the person I need her to be. Noah pulled him into a hug, the kind only a brother could extend. You know who's there for you right now, right? You've got us, Sam. We're not going anywhere. Yeah, Chloe joined in, her voice steady. You don't have to live in that old pain when we're right here. Just listen to our voices, they're the ones that matter now. The barrage of chatter felt cacophonous against the weight of Sam's decision. I blinked against a wave of tears threatening to spill at witnessing his struggle. None of us knew the depth of his thoughts, the turmoil that churned underneath. But we all wanted him to choose us, to choose hope over hurt, yet, just then, my instincts prickled as I glanced up, catching the woman's gaze laser-focused on us. A sliver of a smile curled at her lips, one that radiated malice rather than kindness, an echo of completeness that felt as though it could morph into undeniable violence. I realized with a startling jolt that her intention couldn't be anything but to pull Sam back to darkness he was desperately trying to escape. Listen to me, Sam, I said urgently, placing my hands on his shoulders, hoping the warmth of my touch might banish the unrelenting cold creeping in. What she wants is to control you. Don't give her that power. You have a choice. This is your life, don't let her dictate it. Her eyes narrowed at my words, a flicker of anger sparking in that predatory gaze. Oh. Dear, she said in a mocking tone. You think you can keep him safe from me? Just because you gave him a few moments of kindness, I felt a chill race down my spine. Leave us alone, I snapped, anger rising like fire through my veins. Each beat of my heart drove my determination to protect Sam, unable to bear the thought of his gentle spirit being warped again. She chuckled softly, a dark wind sweeping through our circles, but I sensed a change in her demeanor. Something was unsteady in the space between us. He may have found friends now, but a mother's love is hard to extinguish, and sometimes her words slithered toward us, acidic and pointed. Sometimes the desire to protect leads us to do unspeakable things that I wasn't prepared for. The torrent of her accusation, my rage mingling with dread. Realization dawned that maybe I'd never fully understood what kind of power was at play here, and that chilling thought swirled in concert with my apprehension. As I stood there, the comfort of the cafe became an illusion, overshadowed by the truth that terror could still break through. I turned back to Sam, whose face now wore the mask of a boy caught in a storm. His eyes searched mine, imploring for reassurance, but uncertainty swarmed all around us. Just then, the phone vibrated again, its presence heavy with dire intent. Answer it, Sam, the woman hissed, her voice a rasp slicing through the thick tension. Let's see what you've been hiding all this time. With a heart-pounding breath, Sam picked up the device, his finger poised over the screen once more. The cafe seemed to hold its breath, lining us all in the fragile balance between liberation and despair. What lay beyond this choice, a call from a past he had long sought to forget, could tear apart everything we had built, and as he prepared to listen, I felt the weight of a friendship that could either bind us closer or shatter like glass. It was as if time waited on bated breath as Sam's finger hovered over the screen, the atmosphere thickening with a tangle of emotions. Something in me twisted, dread clashed with hope, anticipation warred with the weight of fear. I could see the flickering torment dance across Sam's face, shadowed by the woman's looming presence. "Sam, you don't have to do this," I urged quietly, the vulnerability in his gaze biting at my heart. The cafe had become an arena, cool air thick and heavy, laced with histories that could easily drown us. "You're stronger than you know." A terrible silence gathered like storm clouds overhead, each second stretched thin with the weight of unspoken words. Yet beneath the surface of my anxiety, a seed of both terror and resolve rooted itself deeper. I had to believe in him, in us. He inhaled sharply, just as the call began resonating, vibrating insistently against the surface of his trembling life. My stomach churned, a sick knot tightening as I forced myself to remain present. The chilling warmth of shared compassion filled the distance between us, blurring the line between past and future. Maybe I just need to know for sure," Sam finally confessed, his voice both small and brave. "What if it brings me clarity?" "Clarity can lead to healing or to pain," I replied, feeling the pulse of urgency beating within me like a second heart. "Just remember, no matter what you choose, we're here. We will face this together." As his finger decisively tapped the screen, a sharp crack of silence swept through the cafe, the world hanging precariously in the air around us, a moment unspooling like a fine thread. The voicemail flickered to life, a voice cracking through the uncertainty that gripped our hearts. "Samantha, it's me. I'm trying to reach out, so don't just ignore this message." Even in her desperation, I heard the weight of pain resonate as the voice quivered, each syllable a bitter wound raw from the history they shared. "You left without warning again. I just want to know if you're okay. I miss you so much, please." Tension surged through the four of us. Sam's hand trembled against the table as he listened, the emotional tide pushing back and forth, drowning the veneer of calm we had barely stitched together. I couldn't help but notice the way patience hung in the air, extending reach, threading between our hearts, reaching beyond the frail lesson in empathy that we had either been fighting against or yearning for. "Sam," the voice continued, now laced with unrelenting sorrow. "I know I made mistakes and hurt you. But I've changed. I'm trying to be better. You deserve better. You deserve to be heard. Just please, don't close the door on me so quickly." A tremor surged through Sam as tears shimmered at the edges of his resolve. I could see his heart wrestling against the flood of raw emotions, a delicious cocktail of yearning and history, tentative hope tangled amongst the burdens of loyalty and past trauma. No. The woman snapped, more bark than plea, her presence crashing like a wave against our fragile bond. "She's just trying to manipulate you again. You can't fall for this. Look how broken she's left you." "No, wait." Sam breathed, his resolve gradually hardening. "This is my choice to make, not yours. This has always been my battle and my heart. I need to discover the truth for myself, even if it means facing pain." There it was, the unmistakable sparkle of courage dancing in his depths, that very essence we had fought so hard to nurture. In that moment, Sam shifted from a boy caught in stormy rage to a young man brandishing a burgeoning strength we all feared yet secretly craved. "See?" I smiled gently, reaching for his hand, threading our fingers together, hoping our warmth might shield him from the approaching rain. "You're ready to face your past. You have us, always. Let's find out who you really are now," Noah whispered, exchanging a look of camaraderie with Sam, a face full of innocent unwavering faith. What lay ahead, whether it would burn or build, was a question that rang through the air with an electric pulse, sending shocks of reckoning through each of us. But beneath the storm outside loomed the aching silhouette of the truth, one we could either expose to the light or shove back into darkness. A heavy silence filled the room once Sam hung up the phone, the call lingering like a ghost over our hearts. And there I found the threshold between our scars the way it had all stacked against us, lurking beneath the crevices of our existence. But I realized then, despite the scars and burdens, we had a new shape, a new form. It wasn't just about surviving, it was about living. That I know it's hard, Sam murmured, heavy with the weight of his choices, yet hope glimmering behind those teary eyes, but I want to try. I want to discover if there's still a piece of her worth knowing. And that was the moment of realization felt like catharsis, a fleeting light cutting through the dark. We stood at the gateway to our reckoning, poised against the remnants of our fears, the overflow of tears transforming into the foundation of new beginnings. Then let's do that, together, I said, feeling the clarity return in fragments. Let's embrace every moment, every tear, every laugh. Well, forge ahead however we must, but we must not do it alone. As Sam looked into my eyes, I saw him begin to transcend the shadows he had long dragged behind him. I felt the pulse of my own wounds sync with his heartbeat, a melody of sincerity and faith flourishing in the brambles of our shared existence. Chloe stepped forward, linking her arm around Sam's shoulders, creating a living shield of compassion. Lucas shrugged off his guardedness, stepping in closer. Moments passed, and finally, almost ceremoniously, we gathered under the same breath, ready to bank on the fragility of hope. And there, amid the echoes of the cafe, the shattered past and the intangible future converged into an improbable yet undeniable truth, a beautiful reminder that even when faced with despair, we could find connection, beauty, compassion, and ultimately, closure. As we stepped together into the uncertain world beyond, I turned one last time to see the woman's fierce expression morph into something unreadable, perhaps regret or sadness, but something nevertheless changing in the atmosphere. I realized that sometimes, as much as we want to cling to the old, it's the promise of new bonds and connections that allow us to rise. With my heart swelling, I remembered what Noah had said, what if we just tried? It echoed through me, a gentle anthem, the chiaroscuro of hope dancing within the complexities of our lives. And so we pressed into an uncertain twilight, the whispers of the past drifting slowly away, merging into a tapestry of uncharted beginnings, one filled with limitless love, lessons, and the courage to kindle the light from within. Because in the end, we were never just fading shadows or scars, we were echoes of the light, a hope that would linger, transform, and ultimately, heal. And in that thought, I found my profound release. No matter what happens, remember, I murmured to my family, my voice steady against the weighty silence of what had just passed, kindness braves the storm. We rise, and we become the light.